Every generation was promised the same deal: go to school, work hard, get a stable job, buy a home, raise a family, retire peacefully. That was the middle class dream, and for decades it actually worked. But today, people are working more than ever and still falling behind. Rent is eating salaries, groceries feel like luxury, savings are disappearing. Even good jobs don't feel safe anymore. Here's the truth. The middle class isn't struggling by accident. It's being erased. Not by one person, not by one government, but by a system that rewards wealth and punishes stability. Welcome to Histonomix, where history meets money. Today, we expose how the middle class is disappearing and why nobody is stopping it. The middle class isn't just an income level, it's a lifestyle. It means you can pay bills without fear. You can save something every month. You can handle emergencies. You can plan your future. You don't feel one mistake away from disaster. That's what made societies stable. When the middle class is strong, people believe in the future. They buy homes. They start businesses. They have kids. They invest. But when the middle class collapses, society splits into two groups: those who own assets and those who survive paycheck to paycheck. And that is exactly what is happening right now. To understand how we got here, we need to go back. After World War II, something rare happened. Economic growth benefited normal people. Factories expanded. Productivity exploded. Wages rose with production. A single salary could support an entire household. And the biggest reason was simple: the cost of living was reasonable. Housing wasn't a financial prison. Education didn't require lifelong debt. Healthcare didn't destroy families. This was the era when the middle class became the engine of the economy. Then, the rules started changing. Slowly, quietly. Most people didn't notice. Because the collapse of the middle class doesn't look like a collapse. It looks like life getting expensive. The first crack was wages. Wages stopped keeping up. Even when companies grew. Even when productivity rose. Even when CEOs became billionaires. Workers didn't get the same rewards. So people worked more hours, took second jobs, built side hustles, joined the gig economy, and they called it grind culture. But a society where people need two jobs just to survive is not a successful economy. It's a survival economy. Survival economies don't build dreams, they build exhaustion. Now let's talk about the biggest middle-class killer: housing. A home used to be a place to live. Now it's a financial product, something investors trade, something corporations buy in bulk, something banks profit from forever. And when housing becomes an investment, prices must rise. If prices fall, investors lose. So the system protects high housing prices, and the middle class pays the price. Rent becomes permanent. Ownership becomes a dream. A whole generation is being pushed into one reality: pay rent forever and own nothing. The scariest part isn't just the cost, it's the conditioning. People are told buying a home isn't necessary. Renting is normal, just live minimal. But that isn't freedom, that's adjustment. Then comes the next weapon: debt. The middle class used to buy things with savings. Now the middle class buys life with debt. Debt for education, debt for cars, debt for medical bills, debt just to stay afloat. And here's the trap: debt doesn't only take your money, it takes your future income. So even if you earn more, you still feel broke, because your salary is already promised to someone else. Banks don't need to own you physically. They only need to own your monthly payments. When your income is locked, your freedom is locked. And then there's the silent killer: inflation. Inflation isn't just prices going up. Inflation is a quiet transfer of wealth. It hits two types of people the hardest: people with cash savings and people living paycheck to paycheck. But inflation rewards people who own assets: real estate, stocks, businesses, land. When inflation rises, the rich get richer automatically. The middle class gets squeezed from both sides. Higher expenses, same income. And here's what nobody wants to admit: inflation isn't just an accident, it's a system feature. Inflation makes debt cheaper for the borrower, and the biggest borrowers are governments and corporations. The average person doesn't get inflation benefits, they get inflation punishment. Now ask yourself this: if the middle class is disappearing, why isn't this the biggest headline every day? Because the system doesn't collapse all at once, it collapses slowly. First you stop saving, then you start borrowing, then you delay goals, then you accept the new normal. People don't panic immediately, they adapt. They cut vacations, they cut quality food, they stop going out, they delay marriage, they delay kids, and then they blame themselves. That's the most dangerous part. The middle class doesn't disappear with a war. It disappears with silence. Here's the real reason this is happening. Modern economies are no longer built on labor. They're built on assets. If you own assets, your wealth grows while you sleep. If you don't, you work harder just to stay in place. That's why two people can live in the same city, earn similar salaries, and end up in completely different realities. One becomes wealthy, the other becomes trapped. Because one owns, the other rents life. And when asset prices rise, it doesn't create prosperity, it creates inequality. The middle class was built on one belief: working hard is enough. But today, working hard is not the path to wealth. Ownership is. If this continues, we're heading toward a two-class society. The owner class. They own homes, businesses, stocks, land. They benefit from inflation. They benefit from bailouts. They benefit from crises. And the worker class. They rent, they borrow, they survive. The gap becomes permanent. This isn't just about money, it's about power. When you own nothing, you have less freedom. You can't quit your job easily. You can't take risks. You can't start over. You become dependent. And dependency is profitable. That's why the system doesn't fear poor people. The system fears a strong middle class. Because a strong middle class has options. And options are dangerous to a system built on control. Now listen carefully. This video isn't here to depress you. It's here to wake you up. Once you understand the game, you stop blaming yourself, and you start moving smarter. You don't need to become a billionaire, but you must stop being only a worker. You must build some ownership, skills that raise your income, savings that don't get destroyed by inflation, assets, even small ones, side income that isn't tied to hourly labor. Because the future belongs to people who own something, even if it's small. The middle class doesn't disappear overnight, and it won't return overnight either. It returns when people stop accepting survival as normal. The middle class was one of the most powerful inventions of modern society. It created stability, it created peace, it created progress. But today, it's being squeezed into extinction. Not with violence, not with announcements, but with rising costs, debt, and silent pressure. And if we don't talk about it, the next generation won't even know what the middle class was. They'll only know two worlds: the world that owns and the world that rents. This is Histonomix, where history meets money. If you want part 2 on who benefits from this collapse and how crises transfer wealth from the public to the powerful, subscribe. Because the next episode is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable.